Good morning, everybody. I'm Karen Kirsten, social media trainer, and yes, I am back for the second time this week. And you're a glutton for punishment if you're joining me today. So you will see I'm not by myself. I am with the lovely Jo Hodge. Good morning, Jo.
Good morning.
So Jo and I are joining you today because we met through the Athena Network, which is a professional businesswomen's network. And this is actually a wonderful example about what Athena stands for, is collaboration, isn't it?
Very much so.
Because whereabouts in the country are you, Jo? Remind me.
I am in Bristol, so southwest.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is because with Athena, we meet, our monthly meetings are online. I can actually go and visit Jo at her Bristol meeting. I've just booked for, I think next week I'm doing St Albans. And the week after that, I think I'm doing Bournemouth.
Wow.
And that is the joy of networking, because as businesswomen ourselves, and we're going to talk about this today, we aren't just reliant on one thing to attract new clients. It's multiple ways of attracting new clients. So Jo, just introduce yourself to everybody and tell them a little bit about what you do and who you help.
Sure, I'd love to. So yes, I'm Jo, and I set up the Digital Marketing Fairy back in 2014 because I was really frustrated that the marketing agencies out there weren't pitching their services to solopreneurs and micro businesses because they just didn't have the budget. So the companies that needed the most support weren't getting it. So I went on a mission to provide ethical, actionable, and understandable digital marketing to solopreneurs and micro business owners. And I specialize in the field of SEO, analytics, and email marketing, which I believe is what we're going to be talking about this morning.
Yeah. And it is brilliant because there is a shortage of people in your sector. And I'm going to say this because tomorrow's International Women's Day, is that I quite like working with other business women, because I think we sort of get the challenges. And before we came on live, we were chatting about, and I think it's a relevant point to introduce the elephant in the room, that is the fact that Instagram and Facebook went down. And I had the other day, it was Tuesday, I had a load of messages from clients going, I'm locked out of my account. Is it me? Is it me? I said, no, it's everybody's out. And apparently I'm in one of the big LinkedIn influencers groups. And apparently overnight in the States, LinkedIn went down. So there's some gremlins somewhere in social media land.
Certainly is. I actually joke with my husband that maybe Mr. Zuckerberg didn't actually pay his electricity bill on Tuesday.
I love it. But you know, and I will often, and I was just saying to Jo before we came on our live, I was working with some clients last week. They have a really great business, and they've got their perfect client is on Facebook. And I asked them, apart from their website, what are them, because we were doing a bit of a social media planning session, what other marketing they do to attract new clients or to keep in touch with existing ones through, other than the two things that they're doing now, and they're not. And do you come across this a lot, Jo?
I do come across it very, very frequently. As you pointed out, social media is absolutely brilliant for being discovered, getting somebody interested in your posts and actually starting that conversation between yourself and a potential client. But when it goes down, if you have no other method of communicating with them and building that relationship, you're not going to see much success. So that is where email marketing actually comes into its own. So all of your other marketing activity, whether that be social, whether that be paid ads, whether that be advertising, it should all funnel into your email marketing. So you collect somebody's email address and then you can communicate with them directly on your terms without having to have any third-party system in the way.
And that is a great way, actually, a really great way, thank you, of summarizing why we need email marketing. And there's also, I had a perfect example of that happen to me 3 weeks ago. So next Thursday, I'm hosting my first in-person LinkedIn workshops.
Wow, exciting.
For 5 years. I decided to have a leap of faith, put it out there, and they're virtually full. I think we've got 1, maybe 2 places left. And I put it out on my email list. Within 2 hours, I had 3 bookings. 2 of those 3 I knew them because they engage in my social media. The third, however, when I checked, and we're going to come on to this, she's been on my list for about 6 years. She's never engaged with me on social.
Mm-hmm.
She's never responded to anything else that I've put out there. And that is the thing, isn't it? Is we don't know who's there. We don't know what their situation is.
Absolutely. So, you've just brought up an absolutely perfect example of you could have somebody on your list for 2 years, 3 years. They've never engaged with you. But, excuse me again, you don't know why that actually is. They may not be in a position to specifically afford your services or need what you're offering. And then one day, as you experienced, you put out an offer or you put out a service, it absolutely resonates with somebody and they book into it.
Yeah, and that is key because a lot of small business owners like us, we network. So we go meet new people, we connect with them, we maybe follow their Facebook business pages, follow them on Instagram, connect with them on LinkedIn if it's appropriate, if it's their platform. That's what we will always do. But what happens then, do you think, Jo, is then it stops if people don't say, well, actually, I'd like to keep in touch with you through my email list if it's okay with you, get permission, because I occasionally host events online and in person, and I'd like you to be aware of them. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And do you think it's changed since GDPR, since COVID? Why do you think it's people aren't doing it? Because I've seen a big gap now.
I think it's one of 2 reasons. The first one being they're not confident with setting the system up technically. So they're not too sure what they're doing there. And another reason that I see a lot of is a small business that will start with email marketing. They will do it very haphazardly. They will have no plan, no strategy, and more often than not, just send out sales emails, which obviously won't get any response. So then they have the view that, well, I've tried email marketing and it didn't work because I didn't make any sales from it. So it's either they don't know how to set up the tech, or they've tried it, not had a plan, and not seen any results from it. I mean, all of the business or marketing activities that you do for your business, you do actually want it to generate a return on investment for you. But email marketing is much more about taking that relationship deeper once you've made the initial connection with somebody, be that in a networking meeting or on socials. Your point about the person that had been on your list for quite a few years, not heard anything. Brilliant example. I had somebody, I send out an email newsletter every Wednesday. There's absolutely no selling in it whatsoever.
Yes, I get it. It's very good.
Value tips, advice, action. Somebody replied to it yesterday that I haven't spoken to in 2.5 years, but they get my email every week. They actually replied yesterday and said, loved your email this week, reminded me we really need to have a catch up.
And just like that.
Just like that, 2.5 years since I spoke to her last.
And I think that's the thing is, I think, when I'm working with clients and I talk to them about this, obviously they come to me because they're talking about social media, but then the relationship evolves, because then I'll say, well, what are you doing to market your business? And I'll say, well, email marketing. And then I'll say to them, well, also, do you have a methodology to get people onto your list? Do you have a methodology to convert people and to have a lead magnet in place to take them on a progression through they learn more about you and your expertise and why they might be interested in using it sometime? And what astonishes me is large brands also aren't doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and do you think people don't do email marketing, Jo? Because I mean, I'll often say to people, why don't you do it? And they'll say, well, I don't know how to build a list.
Yeah.
Do you think I mean, what do you experience? What's the number one reason they give for not doing email marketing? Or is it just they're frightened of having another thing to do?
I do think it's one of the main constraints is time. All of us solopreneurs are juggling so many plates, not only in business, but obviously in our personal lives as well, with our family. They just think, or they have the perception that email marketing is just another thing that they have to do, or that somebody is telling them to do that's not really going to give them the results that they want. So they don't see it worth investing time in it. Which, if you do email marketing properly, it's probably the best marketing channel to give you an ROI.
Yeah, and it is, because you can definitely benchmark it, because with social media, and then somebody may get in touch, but actually we don't know for sure if that's how they first heard about us. We don't know what's been the trigger that's done it. Whereas if an email lands in somebody's inbox, subject line's interesting, they open it and they read it and it resonates and they then take action. That's so measurable, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. That's one of the reasons why I love email marketing and decided to specialize in it, because there is so much data that you can track to give you an indication on whether your email marketing efforts are working or not. And it's not just you gave the example of an email lands in somebody's inbox and they see a really interesting subject line. They may not open that email, so you've not got the data in your email marketing platform to reflect that, but you don't know what else they have done. So if they see your email in their inbox and, for example, you're a retail store, instead of opening that email, they might think, oh yeah, I need some more stationery, if you were a stationery business, and they just pop down to your store because seeing them in your inbox was the trigger. Or if you're an online retailer, they might not open your email, but they'll see one from you and think, yeah, I do need that, and they'll just hop straight onto the website and place an order.
And that's astonishing, isn't it? And I know that I've personally invested quite a lot of time in learning about email marketing, and I'm not an expert, which is why I'm talking to you, of course. Is that open rates aren't a defining benchmark, are they?
Absolutely not. So I advise all of my clients to not use open rates as a KPI. Apple brought out something called mail privacy protection 2 years ago. And I won't go into the technicalities of it, but basically anybody that's using an Apple email account, when a marketing email hits Apple servers, they immediately mark it as opened, even if the actual recipient hasn't.
Mm.
So use open rates as a guideline. Obviously, if your open rates are going up, things are good. If your open rates are going down, there's a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
But don't treat open rates as a specific KPI and say, right, that campaign got 22% open rate. That's not very good because the following one got 30%. As long as the average is going up, that's what you want to look at.
You're heading in the right direction. So if somebody's watching this on catch up, and quite a few clients messaged me, said they're going to watch this on catch up, and they've been procrastinating, as we do, about whether to start up email marketing. If they're going to start from scratch, what advice would you give somebody starting from like no experience, no knowledge? What would you suggest that they do?
Okay, so I would suggest using a really intuitive and easy to use platform such as MailerLite. That I'm not affiliated with MailerLite in any way, so this isn't.
I use MailerLite and I love it. I moved from MailChimp.
MailChimp is
2 years. It's
work.
awful. It's
Yes.
awful. I'm not very clever at that sort of stuff, but even a numpty from Newcastle, as I call myself, numpty from Newcastle can use MailerLite.
Yeah.
It's not
free
difficult.
for up to 1,000 subscribers. So, there's no big outlay. It's very easy to use. And what I would say is start from the absolute basics, get a really good lead magnet in place, obviously publish that on your socials, and then have a basic welcome sequence set up. On the back of that, it could be 2 or 3 emails, which when somebody signs up for your lead magnet, they receive it, they action it, and then they get a couple more emails, which tells them more about you, potentially why you went into business, your expertise, your unique viewpoint on the services that you provide, social proof like case studies or testimonials, just to start making that relationship a little bit deeper. So the subscriber thinks, yeah, this person really gets me, really gets my problem, and I like how they talk or how they write. So they want to start looking at you a little bit closer.
And that's it. It's starting doing things. And then for me, the next stage would be consistency, isn't it? Because people tend to just start then stop, don't they?
Absolutely. Consistency is probably one of the most important things in email marketing, especially from a deliverability perspective, because I've seen companies get subscribers on their list, or they do some kind of subscriber building activity. So they get an influx of people on their list, but then they don't email them for 6 months. So when they send out an email after 6 months, most of those new subscribers think, hang on, who is this company? I can't remember looking up to them. So then they mark the emails as spam because they can't actually remember signing up. And every single email that's marked as spam will have an impact on deliverability, which is actually your emails into people's inboxes instead of their spam folders. So I would recommend, if you cannot send an email at least once a month, you're probably not, you're better off not starting email marketing because you won't see the results from it.
I agree. And I was taught a couple of years back, if you think that maybe, say it's 25% open rate and you're only sending somebody an email once a month, the maths isn't great then about the chances of them converting into somebody. And that for me was a huge game changer. Once I started to get my head around the fact that actually only 1 in 4 people are going to open my emails.
Yep.
So if I'm only sending 12 emails a year, that's not giving them very many chances to understand how I can help them, support them, share tips and information, industry updates, those sorts of things,
Absolutely.
you're not setting it up for success. And you're absolutely right. If you're going to do anything sporadically, whether it's social media content, whatever, it's pointless.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I see a lot of business owners send out a newsletter once a month, and it's pages and pages and pages long. You know, if somebody wants to read that much information, they're going to go to the library and get a book. They are not going to consume it on an email. So if I've got clients that are doing something like that, the absolute first thing I say to them is split your topics into 4 and send out 1 email a week. You're not creating any more content, but you're just spreading it out, and just doing something as simple as that can see benefits and an increased return on investment.
Which is why I love talking to you, because that's exactly what I learned. So when I invested quite a lot of in training for email marketing a couple of years back, and I realized that my emails were too long. I was trying to talk about 2 or 3 different things. So now my emails are much shorter.
Brilliant.
And focus on one thing, and the results show for themselves that in the 2 years since I've changed the way in which I email my clients, so I email everybody pretty much every week. I keep it short, simple. Sometimes I don't even write anything. Sometimes I record a video, which I drop into the email and try and mix it up. In fact, I've got an email that goes out to trainers and coaches that goes out on Friday. And this week I've decided to totally mix things up and say, tell me what you want next week. Tell me what you'd like me to tell you about.
That's the absolute perfect thing to do. I mean, obviously, the more frequently that you can send emails, the better. But I am not advocating spamming in any way, shape, or form. But you just need to think of, is the content of this email helpful, informative? Yeah. And if it is, you know, you can send one every other day, every 3 days, as long as the content is resonating with your subscribers.
Yeah, 100%. Jo, I feel like we could talk all day. I said to you before we came on, we'll talk for about 10, 15 minutes. And there we are, over 20 minutes.
I could talk all day about email marketing.
And when we pair of us getting our hobby horses, it's inevitable. Jo, thank you so much for joining me. What I'm going to do is pop your website details and tag Jo in the comments. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Jo, what's the best way to speak for people to speak? Is it through your website, through LinkedIn?
Pop me a message on LinkedIn and we can set up a discovery call. I love chatting and giving ideas.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me, and have a great rest of the week. Take care. See you later.
Bye-bye.